Hello. So in this lesson, we're talking about core exercises and what all those entail. So what is the core? It's a hot topic. It gets thrown out around a lot, that term. When we talk about the core, what we're really doing is referring to the muscles around the trunk and pelvis. So that includes the pelvis, the low back, the hips, the abdomen. That's all really going to be what we're focusing on with quote unquote core movements. Many movements that we do use in daily activities, they do depend upon the core, so that it means it's very important to really be utilizing said core movements throughout our programs just to really help us increase our functional ability on a daily basis. So core exercises, what really are they? They're usually exercises focused around the use of abdominal and back muscles. However, like we said, core does come into play with a lot of different daily movements as well as other exercises. For example, when we're performing a squat, we're going to want to really stabilize through our core throughout the entire movement. So that core is going to be a major player in things like the squat in order to help us keep from toppling over as well as to keep that weight nice and steady, whether it be a front squat, back squat, keep that weight nice and steady as we move through that movement. Kind of a fun fact, everybody has abs. I know that sounds kind of funny to say and kind of weird, but I remember one day when I was in college, one of my roommates, his name was Luke Munster Tiger, we called him Toogs. He grew up on a small farm town in Minnesota, about 200 people in that entire city, in Ogilvie, Minnesota, and he once came running back to me. I should say, Toogs was a offensive lineman on the football team. He was probably about 5'9", 5'10", 240, 250 pounds. So a very round individual in a good way. We love him very much. But he was really excited. He came back home one day and he came in running. He said, Tommy, guess what? And I said, what's up, Toogs? And he said, I've got abs. And I laughed because I didn't think he was serious, but I was, of course you got abs, Tubes. So I think it's important to say that regardless of who you are and what you look like, you do have abs on your body. So core exercises, because I think oftentimes we think of core as being something we can do to get a six pack. They can help with definition, but it's important to know that there's the key to really having um, if that is your goal, to having that definition within the abs is to really make sure that you have a well-rounded training program as well as good nutrition. It's all necessary to burn off that abdominal fat so that you can see those abs that everybody has. So oftentimes I say that when it comes to our fitness, it's 20% physical activity, 80% nutrition. So really focusing on the nutrition aspect is huge. The importance of core, a strong core is going to equate to better movement. It's going to allow for easier movements, easier activities, so that we're really moving fluidly throughout the day without having to, struggle to move around in a sense. A weak core is going to equate to susceptible to injury or being susceptible to injury. This can be poor posture, low back pain. All of this can be a result of a weak core or a neglected core. So really making sure that we have a primary focus on core as part of our well-rounded exercise plans so that we can have better movement and hopefully a reduction of injury due to a weak core. So some types of core movements. We're going to have some video examples on these as well. We have our abdominal crunch or our sit-up. We don't see that a lot in the weight room. There's not a whole lot of functional aspect behind that in regards to athletics. So we don't do a whole lot of just abdominal crunch sit-ups, but that is a typical one that when you hear core, you think of. Forearm bridge or plank or a side plank, a dead bug variation in which we're seeing the lady in this picture right here set up for a dead bug variation. Leg lower variations, glute bridge variations, bird dog, and Superman variations. So each one of these we're going to have a video to kind of look into it and kind of see what these movements look like. But the first is our forearm bridge plank. So I'm going to have a video that I play at the end of this, but as well as some cues. So right here is what we see when we see a forearm bridge or plank. Some cues that I would use is have our elbows flexed to 90 degrees. You see that right here, elbows at 90 degrees. Our palms are going to be flat on the ground. Reason being is that when we go flat on the ground with our palms rather than making clenched fists or holding our hands together, we're actually going to be using our core primarily without compensating through things like pulling through the biceps or the forearms. It's going to be all activated within here. No hip sag or butt pike. We see this nice and straight from her neck all the way down to her heels. She's going to pull her belly button in while continuing to breathe. So you're going to see that come up quite a bit is breathe, breathe, breathe. Oftentimes when we do core movements, we kind of forget to breathe. So we want to make sure we're doing so. Here's a video example of a forearm plank. We see right now, he's got a little bit of a butt pike, but that's okay because what he's doing, which is a little bit more advanced, is he's actually pushing his shoulder blades to the sky. What that's going to prevent is any kind of hip sag and creating that overextended posture. We're going to keep that still nice and tight all the way through. His palms are flat on the ground, and he's really bringing that belly button up with this movement. So that is our plank, or our forearm bridge, I should say. Next is our dead bug variations. With this dead bug variation, what we're going to do is we're going to begin on our back. Our knees are going to be flexed to 90 degrees, like we see here with that up leg. We can have our hands above our chest. We can have our hands across our chest. We typically like to keep or begin with our hands on the ground, as we'll see in the video examples. What that does is it creates more surface area, so we're going to be a little bit more stable within the core while we're doing this. Some different cues that we're going to look for during this is going to be to have our low back muscles pressed into the ground. We want to have our head nice and relaxed, so we see that in this picture as well. Our extended leg is going to be a controlled fashion, so we're not going to lower it down really fast. And then our arm action, we're going to reach to the sky. We can keep the arms straight. We can do alternating between the legs. We can go same arm, same leg. We can keep them stationary, or we can move or keep them on the ground and so on. So going back to that, there we go. It's frozen up. Our first video example, we're going to have palms on the ground as we're doing this. So that's creating more of a surface area, and it's not just right in here in your torso. So palms are flat. He's got his head nice and relaxed. The up leg is at 90 degrees and the bottom leg is nice and straight. His ankles are also as relaxed. You can see in his feet, they're nice and relaxed. They're not pulled towards his face. Once again, that's going to create compensation through our quads, our hip flexors as well, versus using it all within our core, our abdominals. So here we are. We see that dead bug with the hands on the ground or arms at side. So that's our leg kick only. Next one we're going to see is going to be our arms above our chest. So the arms are going to stay stationary as he does this movement. Head stays relaxed. Leg gets nice and straight. So arms stay stationary as he alternates the legs. That can be progressed to arms across or arms overhead. So our arms are overhead. Now we're going to start to engage the upper portion of our core or of our abs. Just another way of just kind of fighting that balance. So it's going to be a little bit off center. So we're forcing to stabilize through the core a little bit more. And then we can progress that to alternating, which I'm sure a lot of us have done. In this example, we see opposite leg move from opposite arm, but still keeping that same dead bug movement. Next is our leg lowers, the same basic concept. We want to push those low back muscles into the ground. Our head's nice and relaxed on the floor. We're going to control the leg down. But when that leg that's opposite of the one moving is up, we want that to be nice and straight. So we want both legs straight throughout the entire movement. We can keep those ankles relaxed. Same basic concept. We can start with a lot of surface area with our hands on the ground, as we see in this video. Or we can progress that to having hands above the head. We can alternate them. We can have our arms above or across our chest. Just various aspects in which we can change the movement up a little bit to make it a little more challenging. So that's our leg lower. Next is our glute bridge variation. With this glute bridge, we're going to lie on our back with our knees bent like we see here. In this picture, she's flat on the ground with her feet. We like to have the toes up in the air and just the heels on the ground, really pushing through that heel as we go into it, and getting our hips through to the sky so we have a nice squeeze in the glutes and the backside. So some different variations we can see of that glute bridge. Hips up, his toes are up, his hands are on the ground, squeezing like crazy through the glutes. We can progress that further with a foam roller between the legs. That way we get the adductors or our groin involved a little bit more, so we're squeezing like crazy. I should be able to kick the foam roller and it wouldn't move because you're squeezing between your two knees extremely hard. And then we can even progress that to a single leg glute bridge in which one leg's on the ground while the other leg's up, and we're still pushing through that heel. So those are glute bridge variations. Some bird dog variations. We're in a quadruped position, so hands and knees on the ground. We like to have our chin tucked. We like to have our wrists directly below our shoulders and our knees directly below our hips. From there, we're going to do a leg only. We can just kick the leg. Both hands are on the ground. We kick straight back. We're going to squeeze through that glute. We're not going to get any higher than our butt because at that point we're going to get overextended in our back. During that time, we're going to push the ground away with our hands, pushing those shoulder blades to the sky. We can vary that up by having that arm and leg move at the same time, so the same concepts, but we're going to reach in front with the opposite hand of the leg that's kicking back, and we're nice and neutral from our thumb and neck all the way down to the back of our ankles. So looking at a couple variations of that. Kicking straight back. Notice that he's very flat all the way through. He's pushing those shoulder blades to the sky. And he's moving with that leg nice and straight, squeezing through the glute. Then we can alter that up with our hands as well, getting our arms involved. Good. Right there. Moving on to our Superman variations. So we have several different Superman variations. During this time, we're going to be lying on our stomach. Our arms are going to be straight over our head. We can go our thumbs up to the sky. During that time, we'll raise our legs and our arms just off the ground. We're going to tuck that chin, squeeze our glutes and our low back, and avoid any kind of overextension. Sorry, get my mouth working again. So our regular Superman, we're going to see right here. Superman at the beginning, just off the ground, thumbs are up to the sky. We can alternate our Superman, so opposite leg and opposite foot or opposite arm are working at the same time. So we're going across the body with each one of these, still hovering just off the ground. Turn that into a Sailor Man hold, which we're bringing it back, just a little different view of that. Hands are back, we're up. We can alternate between sides. So one hand goes as the other leg goes, and then we can go hands behind our head for a prisoner hold. So we're still getting that squeeze all the way through. The prisoner hold. So from there we can go into our hands-on portion with forearm bridge, dead bug, glute bridge, bird dog, leg lower, and Superman hold. Experiment with that a little bit. You can sprinkle in core throughout your workouts. You can do it at the very end. I really like to have it throughout my workouts as well as at the very beginning. So you'll see with any one of my workouts, I'll always have 4 core movements at the very beginning. What that does is it really helps us engage our core or activate our core from the very start, which means that we don't really have to rely on that to warm up as we're trying to get into our movements as well. So we're already warming those up in advance. So you'll see as I give you examples later on how I would incorporate that. But just something to think about as you move on. So as always, let me know if you have any questions.